Now let's talk about one of the most important aspects of a Model UN conference, and that is the representation. You always have to remember, like I said initially, that you don't represent yourself in your own personal capacity, but you represent your member nation. You are an accredited diplomat representing a particular country. Now, what does an accredited diplomat means? That your credentials being a UN member or your credentials representing a UN member nation are already verified by the United Nations. So you need to have that knowledge, you need to have that ability in you to become a member nation representative, and this is something that the United Nations make sure. Whenever a delegate comes to the United Nations being a member state representative, his relevant credentials are always verified by the United Nations. Though in a Model UN culture, it's very obvious that a similar courtesy or a similar procedure cannot be followed up when it comes to defining the accredited representation of any delegate that shall come in a Model UN conference. But it's highly recommended that whenever you come for a Model UN conference, you not only have a good research about the agenda that shall be adopted, but you also research about the member nation that you represent, and that is where the essence of the accredited representation comes into picture. You represent the views of your government and your people, as already highlighted. Being a representative inside the United Nations, not in your own personal capacity, but in the capacity of a member nation, gives you a lot of responsibility and gives a lot of accountability upon your shoulders. Because you not just represent your personal views, but you represent the views of the entire member nation in entirety, and at the end of the day, you represent the views of the people that you represent. The committee listens to you as a representative of the state and not as a private individual, and this point is again epitomized by the fact that you represent a member nation inside the Model UN House, and because of which any other delegate representing any other member nation inside the committee will take you as a member state representative of another fellow member nation. Now, one more thing which is very important for everyone. Diplomacy is about defending national interests and at the same time making concessions in order to advance common goals. First of all, you have to always acknowledge the fact that UN, being an intergovernmental body, will always advocate peace, diplomacy, and at the end of the day, common consensus. However, you have to always keep in your mind and always keep into consideration the fact that first, your interest, and when I say your interest, I believe and I mean that the interests of the member nation that you represent should always be prioritized over anything that you encounter, and at the end of the day, even if that has to go beyond the very concept of consensus building inside the Model UN, you have to make sure that even if you go ahead with the consensus building, the interest of the member nation that you represent should always be a priority. Rest, as per the primary objectives of the UN, which is to develop consensus building amongst the member nations on various socio-political issues, it will be your responsibility to not only make sure that you highlight the aspirations and the ideology of the member nation that you represent, but you also help the other member nations towards reaching a certain conclusion or a goal, and at the end of the day, going towards consensus building. When I say consensus building, it means that you not only prioritize your member nation's ideology and belief, but you also keep under consideration the beliefs and ideology of the other member nations as well. So this is where the true essence of the consensus building comes into picture.